Hi everyone, welcome to the Arrow panel. This is a live dance game discussion show where we talk about lots of different things that are dance game related, DDR related. Unfortunately, our normal host, Buzzard, is out for this week.
He's on vacation.
Which is good. You all should take vacations if you can. So we're filling in a little bit for the host things. Everything is dark, apparently. Which is, oh, there we go.
There we go.
Cool.
We're
okay,
good.
we're back. Closing that. Cool. So I'm Jeff Funga. Let's do introductions.
I'm Omid, aka Demo.
And I'm Roger Clark, at Roger Clark on Twitter.
Oh, at Bromead, if that's what we're doing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
at Funga _ Of course, someone took Funga without the underscore. Okay, so today's episode is kind of focused on, it's a little bit different than what we normally do. We're kind of focusing just on like how DDR specifically has kind of changed our lives and how it's affected like things outside the realm of the game. So this is not so much like a hard discussion about DDR, like the mechanics or anything like that. We're really talking a lot about just kind of feels things. So the title of this episode is Feelings Won't Fade, because it's a good song.
Which was hotly debated, but ultimately I think Jeff did have the best suggestion, so good on
Wait,
him.
that was yours.
That was
right?
yours.
Yeah.
Oh, well, excuse me, sir. Excuse me. High
It's
five.
a great song.
It
It
is
is
a
a
great
great song, and it's
It
the right
gives,
title.
it gives me feelings when I hear it.
For the record,
So-
I suggested I feel, so you can. I don't know, what was your suggestion?
Something special was
Yeah,
the very
it
beginning,
was-
but just like it was a special episode.
We were all there. Did Dalton have? I don't remember if Dalton had a suggestion.
I don't think don't no.
That's
Dalton
fine.
didn't. But oh no, we're not doing that one. But we want to. So I want to talk to you a little bit, Omid, since you're
sure.
the special guest on our show. So tell us a little bit about yourself, your dance game history.
For sure.
When did you start playing?
Well, I'll just start by saying thanks for having me on. Like, I think this show is really sweet, and like I play a lot of other games competitively, and I think that they also have this kind of thing. So it's cool that this is a thing, and I've been playing dance games for 17 years.
That's a long time.
It's a very long time. I'm 29, so you can do the math. 30 this year, and yeah, I mean, I play DDR ITG now exclusively to work out. I'm
Exclusively to work out?
That's false. Obviously, that's false. I am a very competitive person. Like Jeff said in a previous episode, like he feels, he doesn't rival people. He is all about getting the highest score. Part of me resonates with you, but I also feel like when I see people like, Roger, Jerry, other like Sappy, other like local players, like California players, Dalton, obviously. I want to rival you guys because you guys lift me up and make me better. So
Yeah.
I'm kind of in the middle. So
Yeah.
that's kind of how I approach DDR ITG. I never really got into Pump. Yeah, I don't know. It depends how much you want to hear and how much we want to break it down in the rest of the episode.
I think we got a long time to talk, and
Yeah.
we're probably just going to go all over the map. I think.
Sure.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that DDR for me entered my life at right, kind of like pun intended, right on time.
Yeah.
Also a good song.
Yeah. Although not originally DDR song, but still it works.
Yes.
Yeah, I feel like I just stumbled on it. My first song, so a lot of people actually don't know this, so cool trivia for you. The first song I ever passed in DDR was Dropout Trick
Interesting. You just like randomly
on
play it,
fourth
or
mix.
like was it just like I'm gonna pick this random song, or did you like
I
fill
had-
a bunch and then?
No, I had no idea what I was doing. I just like scrolled through songs. Dropout sounded cool. I picked it because I knew how that mechanic worked. I was like 12, 13. I didn't know what the difficulties were. Played it once, failed. I put in a new credit, played the same exact song, went to the same thing, and I passed it.
Nice.
I don't remember what I got, but it was like probably like a D or whatever. But like from that moment, and like big shout out to my mom if she's watching this or whatever. But like she bought me like a soft pad. I did the whole thing of like playing at home. And eventually like that grew into like the arcade scene, which was like I can spend forever talking about, which we probably will talk about. And I was really depressed for a long time, and high school was a shitty time for me, as I'm sure
High school's difficult
I
for
feel
everybody.
like we've talked about this.
Yeah.
And yeah, so I'll stop temporarily there. But I'll just say that I found DDR at the right time. My mom and dad bought me stuff, drove me to arcades. I met a lot of people that way. And now it's really about like, yeah, getting good scores, like trying to, I used to be like a really great ITG player. So kind of like trying to get those skills back by playing now has been a big driving force for me. Another pun intended.
I was Driving Force Classical. What a good song.
Yep.
Yeah,
So
it's a
yeah,
great
that's
song.
that's kind of a hodgepodge of information. So I'll kind of like, you guys can interview me as you desire, but I also want to hear like your stories also. So
Yeah, feel free. Like I'm not like the host. You like
Oh,
throw-
for
throw-
sure.
Yeah,
sure.
our host's on vacation, so we
Yeah.
can do whatever we
so,
want.
so here's
There's
the
no
thing, right?
rules.
So when I think about the most impactful thing DDR did for me, it was giving me a sense of belonging to a community, and realizing that others are like looking at me as like someone who is like not the like lowest common denominator.
Yeah.
Like I was
That
seen
was-
as like someone who is good. So I'm curious, what was like that moment for you guys?
I think that happened to me too, and it was DDR was the first time that I was ever looked at. I was good academically when I was younger. That's just like a side effect of being a nerd. But other than that, I mean, like, I wasn't good at really anything. And with DDR, I wasn't that great to begin with. But eventually, I became so obsessed with it that, like, I just got good based on that.
Mm-hmm.
And people were like, oh, well, like, you're really good. I'm going to ask you for your opinion on this, or, things like that. And I think that anytime you achieve, like, that kind of standing in a scene, it makes you feel great because people look up to you.
Yeah.
And when I was a teenager, I, again, like you said, I was depressed. Like, I lived in a really small town, middle of nowhere, not a whole lot going on.
Yeah.
And like growing up as like a video game nerd, as a computer nerd, back then, it wasn't like a socially acceptable thing, especially in a really small town kind of like rural environment.
Yeah, like somewhere like LA is like way more acceptable, or here is like way more acceptable. But
Yeah,
you didn't have
exactly.
that luxury.
Everyone was a football player.
Sure.
They were, they were talking about sports all the time, or not talking about anything. And when I found DDR, it was like, okay, well, this is something that I can try at, and I'm getting good at it to the point where people from outside of my region are being like, who is this guy? His scores look pretty good. And like that, I think that is like, that was a really big turning point in my life as a teen, because then I had like some kind of social position in a scene that I didn't have before, and that was huge for me.
Yeah.
I think it's similar for me.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of that I kind of resonated with, though I grew up in an area that was like, it was, I guess, more like LA than
East
it was.
Coast?
Yeah, it was East Coast, New Jersey. But like, I was very near the break, so it was just like,
For sure.
like, New Jersey was like, even though it doesn't sound like an interesting state, it was actually a very important state for like dance games and like in the group location test, all that stuff. So, but yeah, like, it's the sense of belonging, I think, was like, I went through middle school like not really finding my group. Like, it was like, well, the nerds, like, I do well and I like kind of identify with them, but I want to like expand my horizons a little bit, but I'm not a jock and I'm not I'm not like pretty or something. I can't hang out with the pretty people. So yeah, like DDR was just something that like I did kind of like casually for a long time. And I think I remember like my first year of high school or something, it was during the summer, I went to like a boardwalk and they had DDR Supernova there. And I waited for like an hour and a half to play a set because like I was way younger and way smaller than everyone else that was there. And so I was like, I put my coin up and I'm like waiting to play, and everyone was like, oh yeah, you'll get the next one. And they're like, someone plays and then that same guy plays with his friend. Oh yeah, my friend's up, he wants to play with me. They like just kind of like
I know how that goes.
They messed around with me a little bit, and I'm just like, I'm waiting patiently and kind of like scheming in the back of my head. And then when I finally got up and played, I like was better than every single one of them. And they all just came up to me afterwards, like, dude, wait, how did you do that part? Like, they wanted to be my friend. Like, that's the second they saw I was good.
I think that's the best part about going somewhere, anywhere that has a DDR machine and playing. There's people there, and if you're good, like, not only do they respect you because you're good at the game, but they can also immediately tell that they have so much stuff in their heads that you also have in your head, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's like instantly, it's like, okay, well, I have the song list in my head. We can talk about all the songs. We can talk about all the parts and all the charts.
Yep.
And like the history, and like immediately you just have so much in common with whoever it is that you're talking to.
Yeah.
That like I think it's one of the most amazing things about it. You just make friends instantly.
Yeah.
Anyone I meet at the arcade.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. Please finish.
Yeah, anyone I meet at the arcade now, I meet so many new people who are coming back to play DDR Ace now, and instantly it's just like, oh yeah, you used to play back in Extreme? Yeah, me too. Like, you know, it's like, I remember blah, 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 blah. And like, yeah, like, I'll add you on Facebook. You know, like, what's your number? Stuff like that. It just happens so fast.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think when you talk to just any old person on the street, like, you know, you can get to that level eventually, but it doesn't happen as like instantly as something like this.
Totally. Yeah, I was gonna say this is like an excellent segue for me to share the story that I is like near and dear to my heart, which happened last October. So for work, I'm a researcher, and part of the benefit of being a researcher at a big company, I work at Facebook, is, you know, we have a ton of users. We have 2 billion users.
Yeah.
And we like having an Americentric approach will not get you the insights of 2 billion people.
Yeah.
It'll, you know, get you a very small percentage of that, because America has like what, 310 million people total, or 330, whatever.
Yeah.
So, you know, I led this field work in Thailand, and one of the amazing things that happened was in the middle of this work. They're like long 9-hour days, basically like a lot of research, like when you're in the lab, you have a translator, just like a lot of cognitive effort. Like you have to be present, you have to make sure your team's present, you know, behind the glass. There's a lot that goes into it beforehand. Anyways, it gets exhausting. In the middle of this trip, I decided that I was just gonna find the biggest arcade.
Yeah.
And go hang out with rhythm gamers, because that's how I unwind. Like I go sweat it out, right? I go like play, you know, whatever rhythm game it is. Usually it's DDR, but you know, I love 2DX also. And what happened was I stayed there for like 5 hours. It was this giant mall in the middle of Bangkok, like the biggest mall in Bangkok. And the top floor is just this giant arcade. And I met a ton of like 16 to 20-year-old players, just like you were talking about, exchange pleasantries. And it's just like, oh, like, you're really good. Like, teach me how to like do this crossover. Teach me how to like, you know, can you play this so I can watch? Can you like PFC this? Like, sure, that's easy, whatever, right? And I ended up taking every single area score. Every single song I played, I took every single area score for 5 hours.
That's awesome.
And it was to me, it was like funny, but it was like, I got Facebook messages from them later, and one of the kids even posted in the DDR Players group, which I recommend you all join. It's a great way to keep in touch. That like, yeah, there was like this person, Demo, that like took all the scores in Thailand and inspired them to get better.
Yeah,
and that's what I love. Like the fact that like, I loved hanging out with them, and I loved that they were able to reconnect with me after and say that like, yo, you being there made me better. Like how is that not just like the best thing you can ever hear? Like your existence made me a better player at this thing that I love.
I think for me, the biggest influence on me was seeing good players when I sucked, and it's a really complicated thing, because I met a lot of people who were good, and most of them were older than me. Mm-hmm. I was like 15 or 16, and a lot of the good players were like, you know, in their early 20s and stuff. And I think that, you know, when I was a teenager, I don't think most of my friends at school had a reason to interact with many people who were significantly older than them.
Yeah.
And with DDR, it was really nice, because not only were they good at DDR, but they were also in like a different stage of life where I could see like, oh wait, like these people, they're in college, or they're like, you know, off living in this, you know, bigger city. I ended up moving out of my small hometown to a much bigger city in Ohio, in Columbus, Ohio, just because I wanted to be closer to all the good DDR players who were older than me, who were like, you know, better at life than I was, and just like watching all of that was really inspiring.
Yeah. Wow, I totally lost my train of thought. Someone else say something.
So, I mean, I think that what Jeff, Chris, and Hudson did at KSC for me had that same feeling that the amazing Thai players, if you're watching, that had the same effect for me. Like I was like, wow, like DDR is like actually like a legitimate thing again. Like maybe it wasn't legitimate before. I placed really well in some ITG tournaments. It's usually how people know me is through ITG. I was like the first person to like SC go 60 go and shit. Like there's like random stuff that I have kept that have like, I don't know, random people just know me. But I feel like what our American trio did, and shout outs to Paul. I think you're right there. I hope you get the next invite. That to me had the same kind of effect. Hopefully that triggers something that you were thinking about.
I was thinking actually about the stages of life thing.
I was
Sorry.
just filling.
I was honestly just
But
racking
true.
my brain about what I was thinking about. I would really resonate with like the stages of life thing and meeting older players. Like not only fitting in and like I found some people in like my high school who liked playing, but also I was like 14 or 15 and I was getting good at DDR, and all the other good DDR players were like 18, 19, whatever.
Yeah,
so it was really interesting. Like I can't believe it's so like we were very far away like distance wise, but like we had a very similar experience. Like I watched a lot of these people and they came from a lot of different stages of life and walks of life. Like one thing I love about the DDR community, especially on the East Coast, I think, was that it was like very diverse. Like a lot of my friends were not white. And in my high school, actually, it was like, it must have been like 40% white and like 40% Asian or something. It was a magnet school. You had to like apply. So it picked kind of disproportionately from upper middle class kind of residents. So it was like a lot of the people around me were like one or two different kinds of races, but like I'd go to the break and like you just see people of all different walks of life, like people who live in like really shitty neighborhoods, people who are like fairly like I was like more on the well-off side in terms of like where I came from demographically, but so it was really interesting to be able to talk to these people and get insights into like, they're playing today because it's their one day off a week from work. They work the other 6 days, then they work 50 hours because they have to hold down 2 jobs because they live in the city and it's a rough life for them, but this is like their one outlet. And so it really does give you perspective on how different other people's lives can be. And like a lot of activities I feel like don't give you that same like level of insight because there's some barrier to entry, or there's already a culture around it, which like the biggest thing that comes to mind is like I can't imagine anyone being invested in like polo or like something like. But you can imagine like if you were really
even like golf,
or golf. Like if you're really into golf, you're probably already like the people you interact with in that sense are all probably already coming from one sort of demographic or one way of life.
Because it costs a lot of money to enter it.
But a lot of people can play DDR.
It's very exclusive.
Exactly.
DDR's
not.
Especially back then, it was like 50 cents, 75 cents for a game. And I mean, a lot of people joke, oh yeah, I spend so much money at the arcade. But you put some coins in a DDR machine and you play for like 15 minutes. That's actually a pretty cheap form of entertainment compared to lots of other things that you could be doing.
Exactly. So I think there's just like the barrier for entry is fairly low with DDR. And so like I got exposed to just like so many different kinds of people. And I really think that helped me like look at myself and reflect on who I am and who I want to be and what sort of like in a very like chameleon-like way, like what are the best parts of all these people and how have they gotten through?
You just absorb all the good parts.
Like this person has gone through like an insane struggle. Like they have to work super hard and they have like their parents are disabled or something and they have to not only work all these jobs, but they also want to blow off some steam and they like to try to support their family and also this other thing. And so like I want to be as independent and strong as that person. And then I look at someone else who's like super good at the game because they play all the time. I'm like, I want to be like that. I want to take the dedication and the strength of that person and like integrate that into myself as a person. So like, it's so crazy how like, because DDR to me is just not a game that has 4 arrows. Like, it is, and I don't think it is to anyone who watches this show. Or
people ask me if I play video games, and I'm like, not really. But like, wait a second, like actually,
because it's not a video game in the classic sense, and it's not.
That's just Roger being humble right there.
Well, I mean, I play DDR all the time, but like thinking about like, I don't go home every night and turn on the Switch or the PS4 or whatever because. Usually I'm at the arcade,
Yeah.
or on the computer or something. But yeah, DDR to me it just doesn't even seem like just like a game or anything. It's just this thing that I do
It's a
because
social
it's so
tool.
important.
It's honestly like, yeah, I agree with what both of you are saying.
Yeah.
I think like I would be remiss if I did not mention Ryan Duckamuk Iyengar,
I love Ryan.
because and I kind of enjoy how we're bouncing around because you learn like little nuggets here and there. I think that, so one of the funniest things, I'll start with this because I think it's funny. That's why I said it's one of the funny things. Clearly, Ryan was cool enough to come to Irvine to come to the last tournament that we were all at. So
I was super happy to see him there.
it was awesome. I was super happy to see him there. He's one of my best friends to this day. I would take a bullet for him, and I know he'd probably say the same. And we met playing ITG, right? One of the things that we were talking about the last tournament, I think I told you this because it was funny. Yeah, I was like, Ryan and I were just like watching the finals, and Jeff and Chris, as you guys know, are just always the most ridiculous players to watch play the game. And I'm like, Ryan, like I think that these guys are at least 3 times better than we ever were at our peak.
Yeah.
And like, for just to like give people out there a sense of like what I'm talking about, like a lot of people know Duckmuck like way more than they know me, for sure. He was like one of the first people that really like did well on like PC sim files. And he like was just like the air video that I recorded. You know, like he like was just a beast, and like that was like his claim to fame. He also did really well in tournaments. Like he placed in the first NATO 6, got like 3rd, I got 4th, which sucks, but whatever.
Well, also for people,
Anyways.
especially for people who play DDR, he
Yeah.
made the chart for Delta Max. He made the chart for 888.
Oh yeah, he worked on
He
the
actually
Xbox.
worked at Konami
Yeah,
and
that's true.
did some
Yes.
charts for the
Yes.
DDR Universe 3, I think
Yeah.
it was. And some of that got ported into official DDR.
Totally.
And so like it's actually, you've probably
So
played
he's
one of
touched
his
DDR.
charts.
Totally,
Yeah,
I totally
exactly.
forgot about that.
Exactly.
You're absolutely right. But my point in saying this is, yeah, he's like a year or 2 older than me, so it was like an accessible age. So
Yeah.
you know, riffing off that. But the fact that I have met like one of my lifelong friends from a video game isn't an accessible concept to most people. Like, oh, I met my wife on WoW. Like, that's something you hear. Like, oh, I met my spouse on WoW. That's a thing, right?
Yep.
But like, I've been like JT, like Tizza, another one of my best friends, right? Like, Aaron Eaton, which I don't know if you guys have met, but Squirrel Wrangler from back in the day. I went to his wedding, right? Like,
Yeah, I just went to
I know
my
you
friend
just,
Steve's
yeah, I know
wedding
you, yeah, you
this
guys,
past
yeah,
week.
exactly. So it's like, so when people talk about like feels and like video games, like I just want to be clear that like, even though while we were like, basically here's how our relationship works. So like with Ryan specifically, because we were like, I think the 2 best players in SoCal for a long time. I would win a tournament, he would win a tournament. I would win a tournament, he would win a tournament. We got in each other's heads. I was like the Jeff, I was like the MFC master, and he was like the Chris. He was like only 13s all the time.
Yeah.
And we got in each other's heads, and we abused that, right? But after the tournament, we would like go eat dinner, drink, and talk for like 5 hours. And like he'd be on my couch, I'd be on his couch. Like I don't think that people really can grasp like what games do for people, especially like this game. Like it really does break. Like I just know people from all walks of life, all SES like levels, different sexuality like preferences, like the most like race, like the most diverse group I have is this group, which is
Yeah.
really interesting to me.
Yeah.
I think that's just a side effect of the fact where if you want to play DDR, if you want to play dance games seriously, you have to play on an arcade machine, which means you have to go somewhere to do it.
Yeah.
And other people are thinking the same thing,
Yeah.
and you're just going to get a mix of, you're just going to get the social mixing kind
Oh,
of.
yeah.
With like playing a game at home, like even like online stuff, there's like a layer of abstraction there.
Totally.
Right? Like, you're playing Street Fighter online, or you're playing like Dota or something, and
that's why
you
people are
can
toxic.
meet people,
Yeah.
and like the same kinds of things I'm sure happen to those communities all the time, but like with DDR, it just seems like a pretty unique thing where like you have to actually go there. Most of the time, you end up being in physical contact with them, and
Smelly.
yeah, exactly. And there's just like
It's not like fighting games where you practice at home and then go to a place
Exactly.
for a tournament together.
Yeah.
You're all there all together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All the time.
It's not something, unless you have a machine, which means you've probably been playing for a long time.
Yeah.
It's not something you get to practice at home. And even now with Ace, you don't get to,
Yeah.
like, you just don't get to practice at home.
I like that a lot. And that is honestly a good draw, because otherwise I would just like
Sit at home.
yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
we have a lot of collectors of cabinets in the Bay. I would just pick one and go there.
Yeah.
You know
yeah.
what I mean? Like,
I think it's my favorite thing about Ace is now I go to the arcade, I go somewhere,
battle.
and people are there,
Yeah.
and I'll see people.
Yeah.
And I would probably just sit at home on the computer if I weren't doing that.
By the way, shout outs to Phil, who's been my arcade buddy for a while. Every time I go, I just randomly see him there. So
Yeah, it's great. It's great.
Feels great. So I want to stop for a question, and
Yeah,
I
sure.
want to let everyone know that you can tweet at us, SF_evolved is our Twitter handle, and you can also post in the chat on YouTube right now and ask us questions about this episode or maybe about other things. But you know, if you've got any cool stories about like how DDR has influenced you or touched your life, we're curious to hear it. And I got one from, and this is a little janky. I'm like getting Dalton to like text me on my phone since we don't have a laptop here. It's kind of crazy. Buzzard, we need you. So Mohammed asks, do you feel that the DDR community differs in terms of how developed that area is? For instance, comparing LA with like Wisconsin, I guess. And I think like you have a really interesting story because of how, like you kind of grew up like in a very small like rural area, whereas like I think we are more on like the urban side.
Yeah, so in my town, I lived in Ashland, Kentucky. It's like on the border between Ohio, West Virginia, and
Ashland.
Kentucky. Yeah, it's a town.
Sure.
And not a whole lot of people, maybe a like population of like 15K right now. And the interesting thing about that was like not a really racially diverse, not a really culturally diverse place. Not a whole lot going on except, you know, football and trucks, basically. But we happened to have an arcade at the mall, like a Namco arcade, where they just, you know, had Hydro Thunder and Mortal Kombat and stuff. And
Arctic Thunder, though.
But one day I walked in
Thunder.
and they had Dance Dance Revolution Third Mix, Korean version 2,
Ooh.
which I didn't know at the time. I didn't know all that stuff.
The hot
but
one.
yeah, I started playing that with my friend Matt Hatfield, and we ended up meeting a bunch of people at the mall. I ended up just hanging out at the mall all day, every day for the rest of my life
Thank you.
because of that. But
Age 15.
we met a lot of people from like other school districts in the area, which is like, if you live in a small town, like especially a rural town where people live pretty far away from each other, there's not that much opportunity for kids to really mingle in like an extra school district kind of way, where like it was really interesting to me because this was the first time I had really encountered like hardcore gamers outside of my school. Like there were like 3 of us at my school, and I met all these kids who were like really into anime and like, you know, video games and just all sorts of stuff that I had never even heard of. Like I remember when I first heard of people like listening to, I don't know, like bands like Mindless Self-Indulgence. Like I remember someone mentioned that and I was just like, what's that? All I've ever heard of is like Leonard Skinner and you know, video game music basically. And just like getting I think no matter where you are, no matter what size place you are, if you have that arcade atmosphere, if you have like a bunch of people coming to one place to play, you're going to end up meeting a more interesting group of people than you would if you just stayed at home.
Yeah.
I don't know if that really was what you're getting at.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. I guess like density of people and density of machines, like a lot of that correlates. So the more people you have in an area like LA, you're just going to have more arcades, which means more machines.
Yeah.
And so in a place like Ashland, Kentucky, you might have a lot of people coming from very far away to play this one game.
Like definitely like there wasn't any other machine for a really big area.
Yeah.
You know, like 150 miles, there wasn't anything else.
Yeah.
So everyone would come from like out in the hollers to play DDR, and you just get the craziest mix of people. There was a guy who was like 50 years old who was playing at our arcade, and he just like, I don't know how he got it. I guess he had a home version or something, but he was like into it, and like, I don't think I had ever really carried on a conversation with anyone who was 50 outside of my grandparents before that.
Yeah.
And it was just a really great experience.
There was that reminds me of when I used to play at Catskill Laser Tag in New York City, or not New York City, just New York. There was like a kid who came and played who was like 6 or 7 years old. He was like actually like beasting 12, so it was really cool. But his dad was there with him, obviously, and like again, like I had a conversation with, like a real conversation, like not my family, not my aunts and uncles, and just like people who I'm just like teachers, like I'm forced into that interaction. We would just talk about like cool things like life and concerts and you know what's going on in the world and whatever. Like so it's, and again it comes back to the walks of life thing, but almost like a level separated, because I consider this like this dad my friend, but he doesn't actually like play the game either. He just like is there for his son. So I thought that was really cool. Like, you know, you get to just meet people who don't even play DDR.
Yeah, like the arcade techs. I
Yeah.
was like one of the techs that we had at our arcade. he just became like a friend to the whole scene. And just you walk in and everyone's like, "Hey Joe, how's it going?" And then Joe would give us tokens for no reason. And it was
good going,
great.
Joe.
Good old Token Joe. Man. Yeah, I grew up with a ton of machines near me. I grew up in Orange County, so my home machine was Lake Forest Nickel Nickel, which shut down, I don't know, 6 years ago. Some like ridiculous number of people played there. The community in SoCal was intense. It was really intense.
I can imagine.
And this is for In the Groove. So prior to me, there was the whole like SPF crew that played DDR. The only person I really talked to is Johnny Sheridan, JSB. He was obviously like very dominant. He was really good, but I was the generation after that, and we all grew up playing In the Groove too. So there was like a Dedicab at Lake Forest. There was a Dedicab like at the mall in Glendale. There were like
hanging out at the mall.
Yeah, there was like bowling out. There's like random arcades that just had In the Groove too. And like every arcade in SoCal is DDR, like every single one ever. So it was really accessible. Every arcade has its own microcosmic community. It's just like really interesting. Definitely talk to like moms and dads, which is like, I mean, when do you do that at that age? Like,
you don't.
You just don't do that. But yeah, I think like the for something you said early on, like really like triggered like this thought, which was arcades are like a safe haven. Like, at least that's the way I saw them growing up. Like, there were a lot of things happening in my life that I was trying to run away from. Mm-hmm. And I'm not condoning that you should go run away to an arcade from your problems. That's not what I'm saying at all. But like, it was that space for me because it was like group therapy. You know what I mean? So like I would even these random one-off parents, like, great. But usually it was like we all like go on forums, which is like a foreign concept now, and with the advent of like, you know, social media. And we just like talk about meeting up, and then we go meet up, and it was just like, let's just like play DDR and like joke around and be kids and not have to worry about responsibilities. And that was like I forget what you said exactly, but that's how when I reflect back on my time spent in arcades playing rhythm games, especially dance games, I think of arcades as like a safe haven of sorts, or group therapy.
It's just
definitely.
It's really interesting for me, like in a similar vein, like, but even just playing at home, DDR was just like a way that I improved my mood. Whatever my mood was, it improved. So like I used to, like, if I had a bad day at school, which happened a lot, like I would just go downstairs and I'd start playing DDR. And like it was impossible for me to like stay frowning while I was playing. Like there's something about, especially the music and stuff, it's just like when you're playing Candy Heart, like you can't be sad. I'm sorry, but it's just such a good
really
song.
It's gonna be like, can you just even imagine, like, knowing Jeff, how happy he must have been when he got his first AAA song.
Dude, I took my first AAA at home.
What was
it? It was Kick the Can on DDR Extreme USCS.
That was my first PFC.
Nice. And I took it with like a disposable camera because that's all that was
It's
around
crazy.
me.
That's all we had. We were. I took pictures at the arcade with disposable cameras that you had to turn in at the photo center
Dude.
to get developed.
That's amazing.
I
I never
had-
did that. I never did that.
I had like a digital camera for a while, and like some of the memory was out. That was like you had to worry about your memory cards. That was a problem.
Yeah.
And like one of them got so slow that like I had to turn the knob of like getting
my
it to
God.
start taking a photo, and like the shutter would like come out, and then by that time the 10 seconds
you
on
just have to
extreme
leave
was
it
just
on while
yeah,
while you're
exactly.
playing the
Because
song.
otherwise, like I take a picture and it's like when it already went away.
Oh
I'm
my
like, fuck.
God. Well, so here's the thing. Oh,
What were you gonna say?
My first home version AAA's, I took pictures with a disposable camera that had a flash.
Oh yeah,
It's just
yeah. Flash,
and you could
classic
see, like,
mistake.
You could see like a AAA
Just a
in the
flicker,
corner.
Yeah.
Oh my God. I was gonna say like, it feels really good to play until it doesn't. Because
We've talked about
you
mental
have,
stuff like
you have.
so
I know.
we've
I won't get into it.
but when you are just starting out,
Totally.
and like it is
I
just,
totally agree.
and even now, like
Yeah.
if you
Yeah.
take away all the competitive stuff in me, if you put me on a DDR machine and you make me play one-sided love, like no bar, 0.25x, which I love doing on flat or something,
you have a problem, I guess. But okay.
I'm just
Go ahead.
happy when I'm playing it because it's such
Yeah.
a good song. Like as soon as if I can just like shut out the whole like I'm trying to MSC this, I'm trying to get a score, and like I actually turn into a very different player, and it's just someone who just loves DDR, and I just want to like play the game.
It's hard not to love it. I think for me, it was a really great escape because there's with DDR. You have so many things going on at the same time. Like we've said this so many times, where you're watching the screen, you're moving your body, you're flexing all your muscles, you're hearing
Don't you dare
music,
stand next to him.
You're hearing
Oh,
music
shit.
blasting, and it's like you're totally completely immersed in the situation.
Yep.
If you're doing well, you're synchronized with the machine. It gives you this feeling like you're just like melting into the universe, and I think.
melting like the McFlurry on your shirt.
Yeah, but I found it really healing, especially as a kid, where like I always had a hard time paying attention to one thing for a long time, or like there were a lot of things that I didn't want to think about, and with DDR, you basically can't think about anything else because it's so
Yeah.
loud,
Yeah.
and
It does have that healing vision.
and
Yeah.
the music
Oh,
is happy,
I knew you were
and
gonna
like
say that.
if you're a sad kid, DDR is basically the perfect thing for you.
Yeah.
Like it gives you exercise, like it blasts you with happy music, makes you the exercise part makes you feel good, makes you in better shape.
Yeah.
I feel like with DDR, it was the first time I ever had any exercise outside of gym class.
Yeah, and I
which
hated gym
avoided
class. Gym class sucks.
Yeah, and like eventually I started getting to the point where it was like, okay, like I could actually run around the block now and not be winded.
Yeah.
And that's like a huge thing. I don't know what else to say, but
I
DDR's good.
have some questions from people on Twitter,
Let's do it.
and I'm gonna open my phone and try to look at them. Okay, Jess from Twitter asks, "Have you ever gotten negative comments from other people from playing DDR so much?" And I don't know about DDR so much. I think I got a lot of negative comments for playing it all. It was just
Oh,
like,
Yeah.
like,
I mean,
oh, you play DDR? Like that's everyone
I
you see you
actually
say
think-
that's gay, which is a ridiculous
Jess,
thing.
That was Jess.
Jess.
So Jess, I to this day get made fun of for being like you can decide how relevant I am, but prominent member in the dance game community. And I don't understand why, because
I mean,
it's like
it makes sense just given like the cultural environment and everything.
let people like stuff.
Yeah, I mean
That's what I don't understand.
the-
It's just
I-
let people.
I like
stuff.
it.
I think that
It's
there's
like,
actually
what?
something good that comes from this, where like I got a lot of that when I was playing DDR as a teen too. People would just like walk by in the
Yeah,
mall.
answer
like,
that question.
Like,
Yes.
Like,
I
what are you
believe we all-
doing? What are you doing? And
Yeah.
like they would just like make fun of
Yeah.
you,
Yeah.
or but it was actually kind of good to kind of develop a thick skin about that sort of thing, where like
true.
it's like, you know what, I'm gonna keep doing this regardless of what you people are saying.
Yeah.
And I think that like developing that helps you become a better person, because then the stuff that people say doesn't bother you as much.
Yep.
And like just deciding to do something despite everyone else thinking it's stupid is huge.
Yeah.
I think.
It gave me a huge confidence boost when like I first started thinking about like not being embarrassed to play at the arcade, especially with a lot of people around.
Yeah.
And not like I used to have, a fear of letting people know that I played, or because like I kept getting comments that like when I did tell someone that I played, that I would get like, oh, that's so stupid, like why do you do that, right?
Yeah.
And so yeah, like it really like reinforces that the only way, I mean, this happens to this day with drunk Dave and Buster's patrons like screaming at you, but like you can't really control what they're gonna do.
Yeah.
You can only control how you react to things.
Right.
And I
Absolutely.
think growing up, I was awful at how I reacted to things.
Yeah.
Like
I would flip out.
I would
Same.
flip out. I would throw tantrums. Like I used to like, and it's very like thinking about it's very cringy. Like
Yeah.
because I definitely didn't handle things in like a mature way or a way that like made it better. I actually probably made it worse by like engaging with these people.
Yeah.
And now it's a lot of it is just like, okay, let it roll off. Like,
Yeah, but the thing is, you probably are able to do that now because you went through all.
absolutely.
The bullshit.
That's kind of what I'm
Yeah.
getting at. Is like what you're saying is totally true. Like, I'm not that I'm thrilled that people like think that what I do is weird or stupid, or that I'm holding the bar and I shouldn't be. For some reason, that everyone latches onto that. But
The whole thing,
That's so
it's like
funny.
if you're gonna nitpick at anything, it's just like why that?
Yeah.
You know?
Because-
why that one thing?
in any case,
My strategy now is I am like overly arrogant. Like when people like even jokingly make fun, I'm like, yeah, I'm literally one of the best players in the world. Like I am like in the top 100. I literally know everybody that's better than me. Like is that bad? Like
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like I'm.
because I joke around with because I know that they can't possibly be serious now. Like,
Yeah.
I think now they're just like, really? Like, that's crazy. Like, I've never met anyone that blah,
well,
blah,
as soon
blah.
as you
And it's
engage
like,
with them in like a way that
Yeah.
catches them
You
off
just joke-
guard,
you just joke with
they
them.
just
Yeah, exactly.
Well, they're like, as soon as they realize the context around it, like, wait, you actually are like, oh, that's cool. Like, they don't realize that you're
on
going to
person.
give them a reaction that like it's almost like kill them with kindness, but like you're not like giving them the reaction that they were going for of
For
like,
sure.
dude, shut up. Like, you're actually just like engaging with them, and they're like, oh, that's not what I expected.
But I definitely agree with, I reacted poorly in the past. I agree that, like, for random drunk bystander or passersby, you just kind of be like, cool, dude. Like, there's no point in talking to them. Like, you,
Yeah,
just,
I
you try to
mean,
disengage or
there's-
just focus on what you're doing and let them be, like, whatever they want to be. I don't know. That's kind of my attitude.
Yeah, definitely. I think as a teenager dealing with this sort of thing, I mean, I feel like the thick skin kind of developed pretty fast, and the nice thing about playing DDR in public, I don't know if anyone who's in the chat is like playing at home and they're not playing in public yet, but if you haven't played at the arcade, just go do it. It's gonna change your life, basically. It changed my life. I wouldn't be where I am today. I met a lot of the people that I know. Most of my good friends are from dance games. Probably wouldn't have moved to San Francisco. Wouldn't have moved to Ohio. And I don't know. I was going to start rambling, but basically, like, I remember as a teenager, no self-confidence, no ability to handle criticism or like any kind of heckling by anyone. No social status in any kind of scene. And with DDR, lots of things can happen. So if you're on the fence about going to play publicly, just go do it. It helped me like get girls. I remember I had no idea how to interact with girls before that. And with DDR, it's like the thick skin thing really helped because eventually girls from my high school would come to the mall and they would see me playing at the arcade and I'd be like, oh, how's it going? This is this thing that I do all the time. And they're like, oh, that's kind of weird, but cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like even that sort of thing just makes you just better at socializing.
Yeah.
And first few relationships came from DDR, and like I think that's a common story from most dance game players. And does that happen with other video games? Maybe. But either way, it's like I definitely wouldn't be the person I am today without DDR.
Yeah.
I think we both echo that.
Yeah, I think I definitely wouldn't be like in San Francisco right now if not for DDR. Like I wrote about DDR on my college admissions application. Like that was my essay.
That's pretty dope.
Which is like I had to spin it in a way that was like because I also helped get it for my high school. It's like I put in like I got funding, and I put it in the cardio room, and I showed leadership, blah, blah,
Yeah.
blah, whatever. But it was also just a way for me to talk about DDR and something that I loved. And I think the passion came through, and then I came to California for school, and then I got a job in the area. Like, so it opened so many doors for me, and it's just crazy to think that it, like, did I know that, like, I couldn't have foretold that my life would change forever by, like, seeing me a game in an arcade one day randomly in New Jersey. Like, but here we are, and like I wouldn't know you, I wouldn't know you.
Yeah, I definitely.
And
I
I'm
would
like,
not know you guys.
I feel, like good about all the relationships that I've built up with people as a result of
Absolutely.
this game.
I feel like
it's such a good group of people.
It is a good.
I talk to people at work or various places, and like in a conversation, it'll come up where I'm like, oh, I know this guy who blah 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 who works for this company. He's et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, and they're like, how do you know all these random people?
Yeah.
And
Everywhere.
When I moved to California, I knew people. Like,
Yeah.
I didn't have any family here. Actually, the closest person I knew was Dalton, who lived in Fresno at the time.
Yeah.
And like, I spent my first Thanksgiving in California with Dalton at his home. Like, his dad was nice enough to have me over, and that's like so cool.
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
I
that's
went
really-
from
that's
not
awesome.
knowing anyone. I wouldn't have known anyone for thousands of miles, and instead I had a dance game friend and felt like I had like a little family.
Yeah.
At one Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
Like,
I always say, like, you can go to basically any major city
Yeah.
in the country, if not the world, and have a couch to sleep on.
Yeah. I've couch surfed in crazy places.
Yep.
Yeah. So could you talk about sort of travel, like
Yeah.
tournaments and?
Yeah.
Well, hang on one sec. To Jess's question, I believe we kind of rambled all over the place, but
yeah,
Well, that's the
definitely.
point of the show,
I
right?
feel like that's fair. I feel like we should leave with what Jeff said, which is like what I really liked at least. You can't control what others do, but you can control how you react. I think that's a very good life lesson. So,
Yeah.
so yes, to answer your question, we all like got made fun of or whatever, but just keep in mind what he said, and you'll be fine. So I just wanted to
Yeah.
I wanted to period that.
Yeah, and last thing before we move on to travel stuff, there was also a really funny Japanese a Japanese tweet about music games that was floating around yesterday or the day before, and it was like the biggest hurdle for various games, and like Shunatham is like the airs, and Mai is the double taps and stuff, and you get down to DDR and it says shyness. Like, it's kind of like almost a joke, but not really.
Yeah.
Like, but it's actually like a true thing. You have to, if you want to get good at DDR, you have to overcome the shyness of playing in a public arcade.
Yeah.
And that's hard. It's not easy. But once you do, like, your life changes as a result of it. So
Absolutely.
I agree.
Foot
with
eye
you.
coordination is also necessary.
Yes.
Yeah. So traveling?
Yeah. So like, do you think that you would have seen as much of the U.S. or as much of the world?
Definitely not.
Hell no.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Also,
And, like,
can I just say
what
how
cool-
bitter I am about missing by one place the free trip to Amsterdam, because that's effed up.
For
Nat
IGG
06.
Oh,
And
Nat
then
06,
and
okay.
then I won Nat 07 versus it was there no one really good won. It was just me and Justin in the finals, and we didn't get anything. Neither of us,
wow.
which is really sad. Anyways, I just want to say that when I think travel and dance games, I'm like, oh, it was one song because with Damien and I, he beat me on a tiebreaker,
Oh, okay.
and I was like,
You could go now.
free.
Yeah,
I
you-
could, but I have to
and-
pay for it, which is
Yeah.
fine. But anyways, sorry, I cut you off.
Anyway, it was more
Apologies.
just like, are there any? So I think we're all in consensus that we would have traveled. We wouldn't have been
Totally.
around
Yeah.
the country, around the world as much, if not for DDR. But like, are there any really cool experiences that Roger you can think of?
I just remember the first time I went to a tournament outside of my area. My grandparents drove me like 150 miles away to Columbus, Ohio, and I went to a tournament at Magic Mountain East.
Oh, yeah, MME, classic.
MME2, in 2003, and it was just like I had never been to like a major gaming event or anything before. It was just totally insane.
How old were you?
I was 15, 16, something like that. And eventually, like, we did that. Drove to Tennessee for a tournament, to Illinois, to Indiana. Just so many places around where I'm from that, like, I would have had no reason to go. I would have had no reason to be like, hey, my family, will you please drive me to this place like multiple hours away so I can like jump around for a little while? And as I got older, it just kind of escalated eventually. So it was like, okay, I'll fly to Boston for a tournament, or
Yeah.
I'll go to Seattle or
Yeah.
California or whatever. And having a reason to do that is really cool.
Yeah.
I feel like if without DDR, I probably would have traveled eventually, but I wouldn't have done it when I was like mid-teens.
That's how I feel,
And
yeah.
I might even still be in my hometown without DDR, and that would suck.
I mean, I got to go to Japan for
Japan,
KAC.
yeah.
Like this, I think about like I could talk for a lot of time about how I traveled in the U.S. Like I went to Ohio, I went to Pennsylvania all the time. I ate Sheets, which was Sheets is the best, and I wouldn't have. There's no Sheets in New Jersey, so
sponsor us.
yeah,
Sheets.
please, Sheets and Soylent and
Yeah.
computers.
And look at this!
And
Look at this
computers.
tasty beverage right here.
Yeah. Anyway.
Anyways,
But one thing that I really like, it just strikes me as so ridiculous, is I got to study abroad in Japan in 2013, and this was like 2 weeks after DDR 2013 came out, and so there were like brand new songs that I'd never heard before, and like Monkey Business was the first extra stage, and there was like this whole thing to try to pass it. Only the expert, the challenge wasn't even out
okay,
yet.
I was gonna say that's really hard.
Yeah.
Jesus.
But like learning the stops and slowdowns was like super fun, and it just like I knew some Japanese, but not enough to like really have a conversation with people. And I remember Brosoni reached out to me and was like we're gonna be at this arcade at this time on like a Saturday or something. Like, do you want to come and hang out? And I was like, sure, let's do it. So I took a train from Kyoto down to Osaka, and then I like navigated around weird streets and back alleys, and eventually found this weird round one. And I had like the coolest experience of my life playing DDR with other people, because I could not understand what anyone was talking about. Like
Only DDR.
it was because like when a lot of people, like if I was talking one-on-one with them, they would like dumb down their Japanese level and like try to speak on my terms and with words that I understood, but a lot of them were talking with each other, and they're speaking as fast as they can, as fast as they normally do, and with all the complicated words and slang. Like a lot of Japanese that I learned was from a textbook that didn't have slang in it. And here I am like trying to understand what these Japanese players are saying, but at the same time there was like this, DDR was the universal language of like, it was the common denominator we all shared. So someone would ask me like, do you want to play together? And everyone likes to take a picture of like you logging in together, and you both get your names on the screen. And like I'd pick a song, they'd pick a song, we'd congratulate each other. Like it was just, would I do that with
That's
any
so
other
cool.
activities?
That's
Like
really cool.
how crazy is this game that
Yeah.
I can interact with people who I can barely understand,
Yeah.
and still have a great time and still feel like it's like a meaningful thing. And there is, just like you were saying in the very beginning, like we already have so much in common.
Yeah.
So it's making that like barrier just lessened. And
Paranoia is the same in every language.
Sure is. The guy looks the same.
God,
In every
oh my
in every
God.
mix. Yeah.
So what was I getting at? Oh yeah, and one of my friends, Kyo, who shout outs to Kyo, he like
point.
he came by with Red Bull and just like he was like, yeah, we're gonna be up late, and he just like gave out Red Bull to everyone, and like we were there until 5 a.m. when the network shut down, and it's just like
It's like kid
what?
fantasy.
This is super crazy. I'm in a country that's 3,000 miles away from where I normally live, and I'm able to like integrate into this place. Like a bunch of my classmates, they just like hung out with their host families or with each other or at school, and I was at the arcade playing instead, and like meeting local players and learning Japanese through talking to them and figuring out how to say speed mods and how to say crossover and PFC and all this, like all the lingo I was trying to get down. And I can't believe that that's a thing in my
This
life.
is so similar to what I experienced last year, which
Yeah.
was it's really, because these kids in Bangkok, they spoke broken English. It wasn't it didn't seem fluent, but they knew enough to like make some conversation. But I totally echo your point. Like it's actually amazing how this game enables that kind of thing.
Yeah. And just like,
Omi, didn't you go to Rocky Mount like 8 or something?
I did.
With,
Yeah.
Ryan?
Why would I ever go to Rocky Mount, North Carolina, ever for anything?
Well, but I just remember seeing a
But I
picture of
did.
you guys on a plane with Ryan and JT, I think.
And Cody, yeah.
And just the thought, like, you're traveling across the country for a DDR tournament?
Why
Like,
would we
what?
do that if it
Yeah.
wasn't for this game? Like, why would we ever go? Why would 4 SoCal people, for like a non-business, non-family reason, just like go to like the other side of the country.
To Ohio, not even though like to
Just,
Ohio.
yeah, just like this. No, it was
Or
North Carolina.
Sorry.
Just like
I guess
the
North
South,
Carolina.
right?
Well,
They're not that different.
yeah. Like if you're like traveling across
No
like
offense,
New York City.
but
no.
what are we gonna do in North Carolina that we can't do in California? That's kind of what I mean, right? Like we got it. We're very lucky. We have everything in California. We got beach, mountains, like desert, like literally whatever we want. It's here. So I don't know, but you know, this game really brings people together, and that tournament was so fun. I had so much fun, and like we stayed with Josh, and it was insane. And like he had like 20 people at his house, and like I don't know. That was the first tournament. I saw Flash beat me. I think I got third. I don't remember, but that was the first tournament where like Flash was like a legitimate ITG god. He had some crazy scores, and like anyways, that's a whole other story.
Yeah, traveling. I definitely wouldn't have done it as much, and I think that nowadays with the esports, people are probably doing it with other games, like fighting games especially. There's tournaments all over the place, especially things like Evo and anime cons are always reasons to.
Each game has a circuit as well.
Yeah, it's true. Anime, I probably wouldn't care about. I probably would have been a weeaboo regardless. Just
Would I have been a weeaboo if not for DDR?
because I was super into video game music and
Yeah.
JRPGs and stuff, but
Yeah.
like to the level of being like, maybe I should learn Japanese, or maybe
Yeah.
I should just go to this anime convention just because I know they have a DDR machine and a tournament.
Yeah.
And like that was really
Totally.
cool. Just
Yeah.
getting integrated into that scene. The nice part about DDR is that there's intersection with so many other kinds of like just weird scenes. There's like DDR is closely related to the furry scenes, closely related to the weeaboo scene. A lot of like the cyberpunk people are into it.
Video game music and like chiptune.
Yeah,
like,
chiptune people.
You're right. It does kind of cross a lot of different
Fighting games,
Yeah,
again.
timing and everything. Like competitive gaming just sort of leads itself to DDR as well. And just that's an interesting.
I think that's one of the weirdest things about me is like I never ascribe to the like Japanophile stuff, and I don't know why. Like I still like I'm probably gonna go to Japan this year, and I'm probably gonna play a shit ton of video games. But
I mean, you gotta go for KAC.
I will actually like.
Everyone,
I will
go
commit.
to KAC.
I will commit
It's gonna
to
be
that.
so fun.
Go to KAC.
February.
I would totally commit to that. But yeah, I think for me, like, I agree that meeting people. That's where the emphasis should be. Meeting people has impacted like what I'm into because my friends I make through the game like stuff, and then I like that stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
But I was less on the path of weeabooism.
Yeah, I mean,
than you maybe were.
I think I was already on the path from
Yeah,
growing
I
up
think-
and
yeah.
being exposed to like
Yeah.
Mario and Final Fantasy and
Yeah.
like Dragon Ball Z and all that stuff. Just kind of get programmed in there.
I just wanted to read the instructions on Extreme. I'm
Yeah.
just like so
Yeah.
frustrated that like
Seriously.
I'm playing this game and I have no idea what the screen's saying.
Yeah, just like
And
the
so-
magical moment of like when you can read like height, and you're like, this is yes and no. I can read this.
Yeah.
it's totally amazing.
Okay, so we got another question. Galgal on Twitter asks, would you say the niche nature of rhythm games has an impact on the mutual bonds players have compared to League or like basketball?
I definitely think so. I think there's like I think it can breed a little bit of elitism.
That's true.
Where a lot of people think that these games are better than the other games.
I mean, it's like a hipster thing, right? Like,
Yeah.
oh, I like something that no one else likes, and that makes me better.
Yeah.
But yes, like
There's definitely like I would probably consider Bimani like probably the hardest core of hardcore gaming. Maybe it's not true, but that's probably just my elitist bias coming out.
You're so elitist,
But
Roger.
definitely, I think so. Like, everyone knows what Street Fighter is. Everyone knows what Mario is. But does everyone know what poppin' music is?
I was just gonna say,
Mania
just watch Dulce play 2DX, and you're just gonna be like, okay, I'm not never gonna do anything ever in life.
Yeah.
Like that's like that.
it's over. It's all downhill from here.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's nice that DDR is like combines so many different elements of like there's the happy hardcore kind of music and the flailing around part of the exercise thing. Like it's hard to like if someone else plays, it's hard to feel a bond with them because there's so much going on and there's so many different parts and components to it that like maybe this isn't maybe again this is just like a bias. I don't play competitive Street Fighter, but like I can imagine that it's kind of like a silent activity, and like you kind of just like sit down and you like a lot of the cabs aren't even like they're like you're facing.
If there's any fighting game people in the chat, feel free to correct us.
Yeah, I just remember I know like Sunnyvale Golfland had like 2 Street Fighter 4 cabinets, and like people were like it was you facing a screen and then a screen facing the other player, so you didn't really talk to them or like
Yeah, but fighting games you can play at home and you can like you're in the same room and it's
yeah. I'm thinking about like if I'm at the arcade with someone like and we want to play and there's a line like we're gonna play together and we have to like
Negotiate.
Yeah. Like, why don't you pick a song first, and then I'll pick a song.
Exactly.
And then like so like it's hard to not be friends with the people that are around you as long as they're not
Just
like
because you have
forced
to
interaction.
you have
There's
to
so
interact
much
with them in so
rubbing
many ways.
together.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh,
That's well, all right.
Nah,
That's a whole different.
not a lot.
Yeah.
Not a lot.
But the fact that it's like it is a niche game, but like it comes from so many angles that like it makes it really easy to talk to someone, and it kind of like forces that communication between people. So
I have a different angle. So I'm going to play devil's advocate. I actually think that what were the other examples? Basketball
and League.
And League, like League of Legends.
yeah.
I think that it has no, I'm not gonna say nothing. It has little to do with the niche nature of this game, and more like just listen to like the three of us talk about like what we found in the game, right? Like I think that I'm not saying only people that are outcasts, social outcasts at a young age, like play this game, but I think that the people that gravitate towards, like, I agree with you that I don't know if it's the hardest, but it's a very, very hard game. All these games are very, very, very hard, the rhythm games. The people, the types of people that gravitate towards these types of games, I think are a certain nature.
Yeah, they
And
they
so
tend
that
to
is what I
look for
ascribe this to.
just the weird stuff, I think.
Yeah, and whatever, whatever those features or characteristics of these people are, whatever you want to say that they are, I think it has way more to do with the people that are coming to this game and not the niche or novelty factor or like popularity factor of the game. So
Yeah, but
I don't know.
I agree
It's
with
weird.
that,
I
but
don't
I
know.
also think that kind of says like it does reinforce like the niche because there are fewer people coming to it. You have to feel closer, and like the characteristics make you like already kind of on the same level as other people. Like you kind of have the same
I agree with
interests.
that. It's a
So
nature nurture thing.
Yeah,
honestly.
exactly. Yeah, it's kind of a
chicken,
circle.
egg,
Like one
whatever.
influences the
Yeah.
other. Yeah, for sure.
But I think it's a great question because it's like I think that this can go down a dark path that I'm happy to share. But like I played basketball in high school, and I didn't always have this beautiful face. I was very like weird. I had like a weird shaped head. Like my nose was bigger than like the rest of my face for a long time, even though it's still huge. But it's like now it's actually like kind of proportional. Yeah, I just had like a lot of like physical issues, and being a basketball player, I was made fun of by other jocks because like you, I didn't really feel like I had one group of friends. I had like lots of like, what's the right word?
Acquaintances.
Diasporic, like a diaspora. That's not the right word. I had like slices of like diverse slices of friends, right? Like I had some AP nerd friends, some basketball friends, like some like ASB like popular friends. Like I just had like I didn't belong anywhere. I belonged everywhere and nowhere kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
And then with like this, with these again, like this is gonna go like a long tangent, but basically, I'll just say for now that like I think that it's the people that make it great, but I agree that because of the nature of the game, it attracts a certain type of audience. So
Yeah, it's interesting.
yeah.
We have some time for Q&A and stuff.
Do we have
Dalton,
any
are there
more
any more?
questions?
I haven't really gotten a whole lot of other questions.
It's mostly just us ranting.
Yeah.
Not ranting, but
Rambling.
yeah, rambling.
We're just sort of like reminiscing. It's
Talk about relationships.
my first girlfriend was from the music game community.
Oh,
Same.
And like
Not
Yeah.
I don't know, like but it was also just like a social thing. Like as soon as I got integrated, especially going back to how people were usually older than I was, like I learned how to be a human from these people who had
Yeah.
already figured it out.
Definitely.
Like I realized like they're not gonna like me if I act like immature and like a shitlord where I'm just like being annoying, like, so I was actually like on high alert all the time to, even though I was 15 and hanging out with these people, try to not act like you're 15, try to act like you're 18, maybe then they'll like you. And so I like,
that's hard.
it is hard. Like, I'm
It's
not
very
saying I never messed up. I definitely messed up a lot. But by sort of being around people who I wanted to imitate, I got the best qualities and learned how to be social. And turns out that you have to talk to girls to date them. So almost always, I think.
Spoken like a guy who
it is
had
true.
girlfriend.
It is true. Yeah, like I talked a little bit about like DDR gave me self-confidence because I was good, and then people just respected me, which means that you automatically have some like status thing going on, and there's some like evolutionary psychology bullshit that might factor in there, but I don't know. I think
know.
I mean, A, it's not bullshit, and B, what do you want next?
some of it's bullshit. Some of it's bullshit, but I think like yeah, my first relationship, I was in high school and she was in college, and I remember just like mentioning it one day, like because someone at school was like, oh, like, you know, are you dating anyone? I was like, oh yeah, like, and they were like, what school does she go to? I was like, oh, this college up over here, and they're like, what are you doing? And I'm just like,
You're lying too much. You have to say she's from another school district, and you wouldn't know her.
the reason for that happening is because, like you just said, you have to try really hard to get on people's level. You know, like if you're interacting with someone who's 21 and you're 16 or 17, you just gotta kind of try hard.
Yeah.
And the trying hard, I think that's the thing that I like most about DDR, is that it just made me try really hard at not everything, but most things.
Yeah.
You know?
I can relate to that so well.
Yeah.
That is, JT and I, Tizza, you know.
You know.
He and I joke. I forget which one of us invented this phrase, but he and I joke about having Ash Ketchum syndrome because we just want to be the best.
Yeah.
It's
like
hard
there
to
never
do
was.
anything and
Yeah,
not want to be the best
that
at
is
it.
100%
But
from
just
DDR.
like, it's also just improving. Like, now that I'm thinking about it, and again, I love this show because I can like come to revelations that I didn't know about before. But like, thinking about like even now, like I'm one of the best DDR players, but I have sort of taken the like melding. Like I want to be like someone else, and like I want to be the best in DDR, but also I just want to like be better at this thing. And I just started surrounding myself with people who are good at those things, so that I can like shout outs to James and Charles. They're incredibly smart human beings, and they know a lot about like hacking stuff and like I
love this place. It's
I don't
incredible.
know how to like hack stuff. Like they have done so many cool, like there was a capture the flag thing, which is like we're getting into like really nerdy things, but like a cybersecurity like basically puzzle, like a series of puzzles, and I worked with them for hours and hours and hours on a bunch of them, and we're just like basically like breaking into systems, and it's super cool. And I'm thinking about it, and I'm like, I want to be good at this. I want to like figure out how the internals of computers work, like they do. Like they just know this stuff. I want to like surround myself with people that help me get better. And thinking about it, that's what I tried to do when I wasn't good at being a social person and didn't know how to interact with other people around me. And DDR was like the gateway for that. And now I have other gateways that have sort of opened up because of that. So that's an interesting.
I still do it with all of you guys. Like every week I feel like I learn something new from you or Chris, or just anyone else in the community. I'm like, oh, well, you know, this person, like, I see them, like, they just started this new hobby and they're already good at it. I wonder what it is that they're doing that made them get so good so quickly.
Yeah.
Maybe I could do that with the next thing I try. And like, it's really great.
I mean, we have stuff like book club.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wanted to read more, and so I got involved with people.
You guys have
who
a book club? That's adorable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
Are you
great.
going to book club?
I mean, once I move on Thursday. Sure.
Cool.
Yeah.
Books are great.
Yeah,
I used to hate books. Now I like books.
I sadly
Crazy.
Yeah. I used to hate books. That's actually surprising. I feel like everybody I know that
Books are
is a nerd
I
is
just
a
didn't like.
reader.
I didn't like reading what was forced on me by like
That's totally
literature class.
That's
and I
totally
don't care about
fair.
Huck Finn.
Yeah,
Just-
it's hard.
Don't really
It's hard to care about the classics
Yeah.
sometimes.
yeah. But
Some
then
of them
I
are good.
started reading stuff that like about sci-fi and stuff that I actually like. It's cool.
Cool.
I think we're just about at time. I think.
yeah.
And one more question.
Well, one more question, then we'll wrap up. Wesley asks.
Topic, but
Wesley asks, what do you want to be true in 5 years regarding DDR? What do you want to be true?
Yeah, I DDR continues to be one of my favorite things. Maybe my favorite thing. I don't know.
My favorite thing, Supernova 2, Allison Wade.
And
Sorry.
with Ace, the way that the community has come back, I really hope that things keep going the way that they're going. Because if Konami keeps making DDR better, like as long as they don't make it worse, things will probably keep snowballing. And I mean, I hope DDR gets to the point of esports like everything else does. I think maybe some changes might have to go into the game to make things really like that, but I think the possibility's there, and I really hope that happens, and I hope that I can still be good while that's happening. What do you guys think?
I've
Sort of on that,
yeah.
though, do you think 10 years ago you would still be playing today?
Yes.
Yes.
10 years ago you thought, in 10 years I'm still going to be playing?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes,
easily.
I have thought, ever since I started playing the game, I have thought, like, I keep thinking about when's the last time I'm going to step on a pad and play a song. And
I'm going to be 90.
I'm going to be,
Yeah.
I think 70, like, I don't know if I'll live to 90, but, like, I think I can get to 70 and play, like, and AAA shit and be, like, a boss.
That'd be dope.
I'm going to do it.
I'm gonna. You just inspired me to do it too.
Hell yeah. Like,
And-
I own a machine. I am not selling my machine. I don't
Yeah.
care what
yeah,
happens. I'm
I
always
think-
going to have a garage with a machine in it.
Exactly. I think for me, like whenever I got to the age where it was practically possible to buy a machine, the reason I wanted one is so I could always have one, even if they all disappeared.
Exactly.
Because I was so afraid that
Yeah,
was
exactly.
actually going to happen, because it looked like it was.
Yeah, for a long time.
And now maybe it won't for a while. Someday it probably will. But even if all the arcades are gone and all the official machines aren't on the network anymore, I'll still have a machine, and hopefully by then anyone else can just 3D print one. They just download the plans and just press print, and you just have a DDR
Press
machine.
upgrade.
Yeah,
Download a DVR machine.
I would download a DDR
I'd
machine.
download it in a heartbeat.
What about, or yeah, what do you think DDR will be in 5 years, or where do you want it to be?
It's hard to say. Like, I actually am thinking about the esports thing kind of seriously. I floated an idea by Ryan, and I'm not going to say too much, but I am thinking about investing. So
It would be cool.
I want to make it an esport, and whether I play or not, I think that, like I said before, I think watching Jeff and Chris play is like probably like my favorite thing to do gaming wise. Just like watch them play because it's ridiculous.
It's crazy.
You don't go to San Jose much, but I have the luxury of playing with Chris like often enough where I'm just like, dude, like I like don't even understand how it's physically possible to do. Like getting like 4 on like antimatter challenge or 5, whatever he has. It's just
you
like,
can do it.
He has 4.
yeah,
You
it's
can
just,
do it.
but it's just
I
like,
can't do it.
But it's just like I see that and it's just like, sure, I know having been at a top, having been at a peak at one point, I know I can climb the peak again. But at this point, it just seems so far fetched, right? But no, I'm like pretty into. So I want. I don't know. I have so many thoughts. Basically, I want to keep playing, but I also want to have my role in the community evolve so that I can like try to throw money around to make good things happen. That's kind of how I feel about where I'm at. In 5 years, I hope that the things that I did and gave back, the things I gave back, did something. That's kind of how I feel.
That's why we're doing the show.
I know,
which
is why I love it. I think
is
it's
so
a great
people
idea.
can recognize this as something that people are willing to put time and money and effort and energy into making content that's like about making DDR more accessible to everyone.
Yeah.
I hope that
I'm all about
many more people keep doing it. I hope we keep doing it. We will.
Yeah.
We've got a lot of ideas about what we can do, and we're going to continue with SF Evolved and plan tournaments, videos, content, like as much as we can. Yeah. What do you think?
I just want the skill ceiling to like keep improving,
Yeah.
and the skill floor to move with it, because I think that's really an interesting trend that's happened where people get good much faster lately, and
It's insane.
like it used to take you months to get out of to get to heavy or expert, and now people do it in weeks sometimes, and that's just like blows my mind. And so I want to see like that sliding window like keep going up, so that like you start playing and after a couple months you can PFC 16s. Wouldn't that be crazy? But that's like that.
That's Spencer.
It's possible.
Yeah, but there's tons of people who
Yeah.
have gotten so good so quickly. And if you had asked me that, like I'll be playing DDR for as long as I live, but if you'd asked me 10 years ago about how like what would be the new like middle song or like the gold standard of like or what people shoot for, like I couldn't have imagined that what I would have said would have been like cake for everyone who starts playing now.
Sure.
And like I want to see the community evolve like in a positive way via like if this through groups like SF Evolves. I know there's like Atlanta has a music game community like Michigan has one. Yeah, like I love seeing the groups that are evolving and forming around this game, and I want to see us all continue to help each other.
Yeah,
So I
totally.
want DDR to, if anything's about it going to be true, like I want it to be more accessible then in 5 years than it is now.
Yep.
I want it to be a better game and sort of for everyone.
I really hope Konami pays attention to what's happening in the U.S. and I hope they invest more in our stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's like 10 card lines literally every weekend
Yeah.
San Jose's crazy right now.
that you go, and
It's hard to even figure out when to
gotta-
play here because I'm like,
Yeah.
when can I go? I've got 2 days this weekend where I'm like, I'm going to play DDR all day. But what that really means is I'm going to be standing at the arcade all day and playing like 5 or 6 times.
Yeah.
Which is okay with me, but
that's why
like,
I'm not looking forward to Dave & Buster's.
what if there was a machine at Dave & Buster's and there was a machine at the movie theater downtown, there was a machine at
Yeah.
the bowling alley, and
Yeah.
what if there was one at every place like there used to be?
Yeah,
And-
that's what I want. Like it's hard.
It's
People
accessibility.
get
Yeah.
frustrated because there's long lines, and the solution is not people should stop playing or like scrubs should go home or anything. It's we need more machines. Like let's get more machines so that everyone can play on a machine that is in good condition and doesn't have a huge line.
Yeah.
But sometimes huge lines are good because then you just start talking to people and
Yeah.
interacting.
That's also something. That's also a skill that you learn to develop. Being waiting in line for something.
You gotta wait in line a lot for DDR.
And
sometimes.
it's like
You learn how to check
I
your
used,
phone.
I
You
used
really
to hate
queuing
it.
as
I
they
used to
say in
hate it,
London.
but like
Yes.
now it's like I'll wait my turn and I'll try to maximize the amount of return that I get out of the songs that I play.
Yeah. All right, I think we're wrapping it up now. We hope you guys enjoyed the conversation, and thank you for watching. And
Thank
Thank
you
you
for
for playing.
playing.